It's now 8 o'clock and this is Morning Express. We are getting to the tail end of the program, or rather the last hour, the final stretch. And it's time for us maybe to get some inspiration, being a Friday. And we are coming from a period and time where Kenyans feel sometimes a bit despondent and despite, as it were, because of the protracted electioneering period. But how do you pick yourself up and get moving on? Sometimes we have what the panel before was talking about, the blame game, where we have everybody blaming the politicians blaming the system blaming the institution. So it's all a vicious circle. But how do we get out of that? And joining me this morning, we have Barry Mitchell, who's a trainer and entrepreneur. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Nice
we also have Wanjiro Githiomi Nganga, who's the CEO for Bimanet. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Barry, what got my interest initially was the fact that you spoke about, or when I read some of your articles, you speak about a small little voice that stops us from doing what we need to do. And I know there are many of us who probably feel the country I'm in is probably the thing that's wrong, or the political cycle that we have had is what is stopping me. Yeah. What is that small little voice that you talk about, and how do we silence it?
So that's a great question. And, you know, one of the things that I work around is sales. And we talk often that the first and most important sale is the sale to yourself. And that sale comes from what we call a little voice. So like for your viewers, that little voice that's saying what little voice. And when we look at anything that we want to do in life, if we focus on results, results come from behaviors. Mm-hmm. Behaviors come from the way we think. And the way we think comes from where we come from our past. So in the circumstances that you've been through, what happens is we develop a whole lot of thoughts in our subconscious that determine how we react and how we think. And that brings up a little voice. So let me give you an example. If, I don't know, how many people grew up, and if you grew up with this, I grew up in a household where my parents told me money doesn't grow on trees. Mm-hmm. And what that teaches us, if that keeps getting repeated, is over a period of time, our little voice tells us money's hard to come by. So we grow up in a scarcity mindset and think, I got to work really, really hard to make money because it's in real short supply. And that little voice keeps telling us that that's true. Until we learn how to reframe that little voice, until we learn how to get through that little voice and create a different little voice that allows us to be able to create different results.
So, what you're talking about is almost like we are reprogrammed.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
So over a period of time, it's called conditioning. We get conditioned. So you go to school, you have teachers that condition you. So a classic conditioning over the last, 50 years is go to school, get a good education,
get a good job,
get a great job, you'll make lots of money and you'll retire. Mm-hmm. Now, in today's world, that's not really working like it used to work 30, 40 years ago, all over the world, not only just in Kenya. So what we're doing is we're teaching our kids that that's the way to do it. But if you look back, if a lot of people look back on their lives, they go, it's not working for me. Why am I getting my kids to do the same thing? Mm-hmm. That is different. Is education important? 100%. I'm an educator, so it's critical. But it's that conditioning of that's how we've been conditioned. So you got to shift when you want different results. You got to change the way you think, and changing the way you think is a conscious process. It's a decision.
Okay, all right, Wanjiro. Sounds all good on paper, and sometimes we're tempted to think that, yes, it sounds good, but you don't understand where I'm coming from. You've lived in Kenya, you know how Kenya works. Is this something that you feel can work and can be contextualized to our current situation?
Absolutely. I have lived in both countries, in Kenya and South Africa. Mm-hmm. I've lived in South Africa for 23 years, but I'm one of those Kenyans who never really left. I always came back home every single year, and for the last 6 years, I've been doing a lot of business in Kenya. And I met Barry Mitchell in Johannesburg, and I did the Sales Explosion workshop. And for me, it made so much sense as a Kenyan who understands the South African context. It made so much sense because he taught me how to discipline that little voice, to tell it, to direct it in the right direction. And I also feel sometimes as a business owner in Kenya, I feel that this year especially has been, oh, the economy is really bad, you need to slow down, take the money off this, wait until the politics has blown over. But because of the coachings and the teaching that I've gone through with Barry Mitchell, I've learned how to tell that little voice, no, you know what, this is just an election cycle. It will come and go. It has happened before. We live through it. We continue with the business as usual. Because for me, the little voice, I told my little voice that this is planting season, right? I can't wait until harvest season to do the work. Mm-hmm. So absolutely, his teachings can definitely work for any economy, for any people, because it's universal wisdom.
How do you draw the line between the small little voice that you're calling that needs to be silenced and reality? Because the truth of the matter is, if I look at our Kenyan situation, is that we've had a very long period of elections, which has not been very good for business by virtue of the fact that there's been sporadic incidences of riots and violence. So that is reality. It's not just a voice, but it is what's happening.
You see, reality, I think, is also relative. How you define reality, you see, I look at reality is also informed by your little voice as well and what you make out of it. In this same economy where people have been saying it's terrible, there's no money, there are also some people who are making a lot of money.
True.
I look at Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is a country with over 91% unemployment. But there's still people making money legally, ethically, and sustainably. The same thing in South Africa, my other home, because I'm a dual citizen. We're going through the same story. Zuma has messed up, he's done a number of the country, but there's still people who are making the money. The question is, how do you react with that reality? And for me in Kenya, in as much as it has been a slow year, we've seen a lot of growth in our business and learning because we chose to take a different route. We chose to say, yes, it is what it is. Let's roll with the punches. Yes.
Barry, I've read a book which is called The Power of Positive Thinking. Is this just the power of positive thinking that's working for us?
Yeah, so to a degree, it's the power of positive thinking, but it's also a choice. So you've got to take positive thinking with action. So you combine changing your mindset with taking action. So just what Wanjiru's talking about is what happens is the facts are the facts. The question is, what truth do we create in our mind about those facts? So, you know, your previous panel loved it. They were talking about taking responsibility. Now, taking responsibility, we call it living above the line. Being irresponsible, not taking responsibility is laying blame, justification, all those type of things. Now, that's a personal choice. You know, I can say in my own personal economy, what can I take responsibility for, and how do I work to do what I need to do, rather than allowing that little voice to take over and say, well, there's no point in doing it because this is not going to happen and there's none of this. I go, in spite of the facts, what can I do in spite of, rather than because of the facts, what am I not going to do? And at the end, is it easy? No. And I think a lot of people go, I want the silver bullet of change, and it's not. Personal development, changing your mindset, all that sort of stuff is not easy. Sometimes it's very simple, but it's not easy. But it is taking control. You know, we have a saying that says when you take control of your own economy, you start influencing the economy. And you know, so in terms of I suppose an example that I use is this. If every single person, if we started a movement where we said, hey, Michael, you and I this week, we're going to pick up one piece of paper a day. But our goal is, can you find another person every day to do one piece of paper as well? And if we start rolling that out, it's just one piece of paper. If you take the compounding effect and the shift that would change in our mindset, in 2 years' time, we'd have a paper-free Kenya. And what would ultimately happen is when you and I see people throwing paper on the floor, we're going to go, hey, dude, stop. And that's a transition in our mindset. And what most people will say, well, there's no point because, look, it's so dirty, no one's going to do it anyway. So I'm just going to run with the fault.
All right. Wanjiru, changing a mindset is not something that you wake up tomorrow and boom, things are done. It takes time, but this is a beginning point.
Yes.
What is the first step that I need to take to change my mindset?
I think for me what has changed is, in my life, is investing in my own education, in my own intellectual and spiritual growth, and maintaining it every day, keeping it going all the time. There's no silver bullet, as Barry says, but the consistent exposing myself to information that will recondition and reprogram my upbringing, because we are all about conditioning, and reconditioning takes time. But I have chosen to actively recondition myself. And one of the things that we have done as a business, as Bimanet, we've said, you know, I'm privileged to have access to a lot of information. And as Bimanet, that's why we are bringing Barry out and many other trainers into Kenya to really give us, to invite us to change our reality and our thinking, to invite us into a different model of thinking so that we can change the way we do things and the way we think about things. As Barry says, you know, we're in this economy or in this political circumstance where we've convinced each other as a nation that it just doesn't work, right? And as I said, it begins with one person at a time. And at Bimanet, we've got this thing where we say, we don't want to read newspapers, we don't want to watch bad news. We want to consistently expose ourselves to content and context that will help us think that we can do better.
All right, Barry, we need to wind up. I've heard the saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
And how do I select what to read? What is it that influences me? What is it that helps me change that small voice to be a positive voice?
One key thing is power of association. You know, who you hang out with, who you're with. And, you know, there's the saying that goes, you are a model of the people you hang out with. So if you hang out with people that earn 100 shillings, you'll earn 100
Chances
shillings.
are you'll earn.
If you hang out with people that earn 1 million shillings, the chances are that you'll earn 1 million shillings because you start adopting the habits and the processes. So our environment, we have a saying that says environment is greater than will. So the first step is put yourself in an environment where you're working with people that are thinking different, achieving different things, and are creating things that you aspire to be and to become. And so a lot of people are focusing on the having, I want to have, and what do I need to do. But the key area is, who do I need to be? And being comes from here. Being's the most powerful thing we have, Michael, is what's between this year and this year. And when we use it in the way that God designed it, intended it, in the power that we have, we can achieve some amazing things. You know, human beings have unlimited potential, but we limit ourselves by ourselves.
By ourselves. We are our own worst enemy.
Yes, yes.
All right, Wanjiru, we need to wind up. I know that you're going to be having a function, is it tomorrow at the University of Nairobi?
Yes.
For anybody who would want to come, maybe just the details so that they can get more of this and hopefully have a mindset change.
Okay, so for the first time in Kenya, Bimanet is hosting the Sales Explosion Workshop. And it's going to be at the Nairobi University Auditorium tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning. It's not just any auditorium, it's that swanky auditorium where Jack Ma was hosted, state of the art. And Barry will be talking about that little voice, and the tickets are going to be on sale at 3,500 for a standard ticket or 4,000 for a VIP ticket, but I think the VIP tickets are sold out. However, for that, you get to spend 3 hours with Barry teaching you how to redirect your thinking and how to use that thinking to explode your sales. It is a workshop I have done that has transformed me, and I always thank Barry for your coaching and mentorship. He changed my life. We did it in Johannesburg with our executive director, and really I hope that every Kenyan who wants to see something different in 2018 shows up tomorrow, because at 3,500, it is a fraction of the price that we pay for it in South Africa.
Barry, what is it that I'll take home if I came for the conference? What is it that you promise me?
That at the end of the day, you'll leave there knowing that, pretty simple, sales equals income, income equals life. The better you learn to sell, the better you'll earn, the better you earn, the better you live. But earning is not only about money. Earning is about all the things that we attract in our life. And at the end of the day, everyone sells. So, you know, you'll learn that the first and most important sale of all is the sale you make to yourself. And when you can sell yourself on a reason why you can, rather than a reason why you can't, that's when you make change.
That's where you make change. All right, thank you very much, Barry Mitchell and Wanjiru Gideon-Minganga, for joining us this morning. And, well, I'm sure that we'll have testimonials after people have attended. It's now 15 minutes after 8. We're going to take a short break. Remember, the 1st of December. Today happens to be the 1st of December. And we'll be right back. It's World AIDS Day, and find out what the youth are doing to ensure that you know more about AIDS, and also to ensure that the numbers are reduced on infections, and also to reduce stigma. That's coming up right here on Morning Express.